I'm going out tonight. Try not to die.
Try not to die. Try not to die.
I thought you couldn't talk.
Young woman with a drink in her hand. She liked to listen to rock and roll. She moves with the music.
Don't look at me like that. It's just something I do sometimes.
Never gets old. It's the only thing that never gets
Hello? I need some help. Where's the car?
You have 5 seconds before the door is sealed. 5, 4, 3, 2.
What is happening? What is this place?
I don't mean to scare you, but we haven't much time. It's not wise to keep them waiting. They'll be very interested in someone new,
It's a window on the other side. They come every night.
and they'll watch us.
What is that? What are they doing?
Applause. For you, mean it.
How long have you been here?
I don't know.
And you've never seen one.
No one sees one and survives.
They have come to our world for a reason.
I'm not supposed to be here. And I'm not staying here.
They allow us to live because we follow their rules. You have broken too many.
What did he see? I'm trying to get in.
Try not to die.
I saw myself.
Someone's out there.
Please open the door.
John? My husband's outside.
This is a trick.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. It's Mike. Joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. How's it going, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, people watchers. And actually, I just left the mall, so I was kind of people watching today myself. So, yeah, how the hell you doing, Mike?
Pretty good. How close were you studying the people you were watching, eh?
I didn't really like the looks of any of them, so I wasn't studying them too hard.
All right. Also with us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don?
Man, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right. So this week we are covering the theatrical release, The Watchers, and this is based on the book of the same name. And this is actually, or I guess the screenplay or script for the movie itself is written by Ishana Shyamalan, which is the daughter of M. Night. And just to clear up that confusion, because it seems like maybe now that the movie's out, everyone knows, but I know like going into it, people thought this was like an M. Night movie, probably just because of the last name. That's all they paid attention to. But it's actually his daughter making her directorial debut. It's based off, like I said, the novel the same name by A.M. Shine, The Watchers. From what I've seen of people talking about the book and the movie, it seems like there's a lot over as far as like likes and dislikes, so we will probably hit on all throughout the episode. So let's start, or actually no, let me take the synopsis. A young artist gets stranded in an extensive immaculate forest in Western Ireland, where after finding shelter she becomes trapped alongside 3 strangers stalked by mysterious creatures each night. All right, so starting with general thoughts on The Watchers, let's go. What did you think of The Watchers?
All right. So with The Watchers, this was kind of an odd movie because, as our regular listeners know, I don't watch trailers, so I knew very little about this movie other than what I saw on the poster, and maybe some of the mouth stuff. So I knew what the basic story was, but for the first act, I was pretty much engaged with the story. I was interested in the mystery of, what the Watchers are. Why are they watching these people? How did all of these people, get into this little building that they call the Coop? Is it the same story as Mina, the girl that we follow? Things like that. But then as we start getting into the second act and we start getting a little bit more information about the creatures and a little bit more information about some of the other people in the coop, I just found myself losing interest. Like, I just was not happy with the plot reveals as they were coming. This is a type of story that we've seen before. I'm not going to say what type of story or what type of antagonist it is, because it's usually something that I really, really enjoy, but I don't want to spoil that quite yet. But let me tell you, this is the first time I've seen this type of story, and I didn't enjoy it with this type of antagonist, I should say. Like I said, as we get more and more reveals, I just found myself being less and less interested. And this movie is filled with so many plot holes. There are so many plot holes in here that you kind of have to just accept. It's suspension of disbelief. Things like, Madeline's motivation, throughout the film. And other things like that, too. I had questions with the original Doctor that set up this entire thing. All of it just left me very, very satisfied. So that by the end of the movie, I just was completely disinterested. I just didn't care about anyone in this film. And then this movie does that weird Lord of the Rings things where there's like 2 endings. I know the Lord of the Rings had like 4 different endings, but with this one, like, something happens about an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, which would usually mark the end of this type of film. But then it keeps going, and everything in that secondary part of the movie, like the last 10 to 15 minutes, I just thought was incredibly stupid, unsatisfying. And the movie just left me like just upset that this thing's getting such great reviews. A lot of people are speaking highly of it. And I just found myself disinterested, like completely disinterested. Folks, if this was a streaming movie that I was not recording a review for, I would not have finished it. I'm telling you that right now. I probably would have stopped the movie after the first ending and just been like, okay, good enough, and not even worried about the additional, 15, 20 minutes extra they tack on at the end. That's supposed to be some kind of satisfying ending to this story. But honestly, I just found it insipid, pedantic, and just boring as all hell. So yeah, like I said, this movie may work more for other people than it did for me. But like I said, once we get the reveal of what the creatures are, I just started to lose interest, because we've seen that done so much better in the past. Even recently, even within the last few years, we've seen stories like this done a lot better. I mean, and during the walkthrough, I'll have some examples, because like I said, I don't really want to compare this movie to anything that we've seen before, because it might give away a little bit too much story details for people who haven't seen it. So I'm just going to say that the movie started out good, and just the more and more we went into it, the less interested I was, until we get to the end, and I was just happy that the credits started rolling so I could get the hell out of the theater and go home and watch something that I actually enjoy. So I'll leave my general thoughts at that. It's a mixed bag, but honestly, it leans more heavy towards not great, whereas last week's mixed bag, In a Violent Nature, had some great kills, had a good killer, had a good backstory. We just found it to be a little bit dull with some pacing issues. This one has a lot more problems, and, we'll talk about that, obviously, as we go through the walkthrough and talk about some spoilers. But yeah, I'm going to leave my general thoughts at that. It's not something that I think I'll return to. Nothing that really made me happy, including the fact that we had, Olwen Foray, who, we've talked about recently. She's been in a couple of genre films, and usually I talk her up and talk about how she's usually one of the high points of the film. She's not even really a high point in this film either. It's nice to see her, but just, nobody really was impressive in this movie. Nothing. Ultimately, the story of the whole thing almost means nothing by the end, and yeah, I'm just very unhappy with it. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. The Watchers, I do not recommend. If you need to see it for your 2024 watch list, I'd say wait for streaming. Don't spend any money on this one. Otherwise, move forward at your own discretion. So I'll leave it at that for now. Back to Mike.
All right, let's pass the mic over to Don. What did you think of The Watchers?
Yeah, like father, like daughter. Not much for this one. I do agree with Venom. There's a lot to like in the first act. I really found the setup really intriguing. This whole idea about these mystical creatures and what they're doing, watching human beings. I found the idea kind of not necessarily good, but it's enough to keep me interested, and it's enough to work off of. But yeah, as soon as this thing starts unfurling and starts unraveling, there's just a whole mess of problems here. Trying to, name some of them is going to get into spoiler territory, but I mean, trying to make heads or tails of the storyline to this one is just absolutely nonsensical. I gave up about 15, 20 minutes in trying to make sense of what was happening, and as soon as some of the later revelations start happening, and especially once Venom alluded to it, once we get the revelation about the creatures, yeah, it just completely falls apart. There's just so many like contradictory factors here. Stuff doesn't even add up. Like in part of the I can't even mention that. That's a spoiler. Never mind that. Well, I guess for me, I think the biggest issue is that once it's all said and done, there's just very little actual genre elements to this one. And to me, it kind of falls outside of the genre anyway, so I wouldn't even really bother. I mean, like Venom said, wait for streaming. I wouldn't even bother. I don't even think it's a horror film at all. Especially with the PG-13 rating, I don't think there's anything here that a genre fan will like. I have heard good things about the book, especially since a lot of people are starting to compare it now that it's out and realizing that, oh, hey, it's adapted off the book. I am hearing people talk up the book, so I am a little curious as to what got changed, because a lot of the critiques seem to have been. I'm trying to not really say much, but most of the critiques that we have seem to be elements that were not in the book. So I don't know if it was something lost in translation or if it was studio interference or something. But from what I'm hearing, I am hearing the book is better and it makes more sense. So I haven't read it. I mean, I don't read, but I have heard that just from a few groups that I'm in, just based off of this past weekend, and so yeah, it doesn't really work for me either. It just kind of plods along. The film just absolutely falls off a cliff at like the 30-40 minute mark, and it doesn't really fall back into the genre for me. So yeah, I do agree. I think the first half is probably the best part of this. It's not good enough to be made into a short like what you could have done with In a Violent Nature. I don't think you can probably, I don't think you can comfortably do that. But yeah, like the first 20-30 minutes to this are easily the best. I think the mystery's engaging. I mean, I even really liked the appearance of the forest in here. I thought it looked really good. I thought like the technical elements looked really fine. But yeah, it's just the story here. I mean, it contradicts itself. It falls all over, it's all over the place. It falls on its face multiple times. The pacing is just not there. And yeah, it just goes on far longer than it needs to. So all of those on top of it not really feeling like a genre film, yeah, it's not really one I can recommend even to genre fans. So until I hear otherwise, I would probably say stick to the book and then just ignore this one. So yeah, I don't have much else to add because a lot of the other stuff is probably going to be spoilers that we'll talking about in a few minutes. So yeah, back to you.
All right. I am pretty much in alignment. The first act was fine. I liked the setup, of what we got. The whole process of how our main character got to the location was fine. Even like maybe like the first night when we're not overly sure of what's going on, just we're kind of experiencing it for the first time ourselves. And I was like, okay, we'll have the makings of like something interesting here. And yeah, it's just the longer it went on and the more we're kind of learning, I felt like the less fascinated about it. And it just kind of made more questions than answers. And then I also thought like there was a point in the movie that felt like it could have been a natural ending, and they tacked on something else. And I do think that's in the book too. It's not that the movie changed that, but I felt like that last segment was kind of like they just kind of throw so much at you with explanation and what's going on. I'm like, they could have just ended the movie about 15 minutes earlier, and it would have made more sense just to do that. I think there's a lot of things that aren't explained around like mythology and the structure of everything's that's set up. It's hard to even get detailed without spoiling it, but like the the more you just think about like the setup after the like after the movie's over and you're kind of going back and thinking about it, it's like, wait a minute, how was this even possible in the first place? But like I said, that all kind of happened as the second act kicked in, and especially the third act. But there was a foundation for like a good movie here, and I'm sure there's going to be some people that like it more than we seem to. But I just think there was too much unexplained stuff to really elevate the movie beyond kind of like a mid-tier movie that's hard to recommend here. It to me, it's. I know Don made the comment like father like daughter. I would say when it comes to M. Night, I am kind of like he has about 2 or 3 movies I really really like, but like the rest, yeah, it's this feels like kind of like his mid to like lower level stuff. So I don't know. We'll see what she wants to tackle next, because I've heard criticisms of the book that are similar to the movie. So maybe it's just one of those things where it's the project that she took on. Maybe we'll see her skills shine through on her next movie. But yeah, I can't really claim this is any more than like a mid-level kind of like forgettable movie. So I'll kick it back to you, Venom.
I mean, the movie will probably work a lot better for maybe younger horror fans. Well, the horror. I guess there's horror. I mean, people die in it. I guess if that's your definition of horror, it's a horror movie. But yeah, there's just I just don't feel like there's enough here to keep genre fans engaged. It's like the first act, it's all about the mystery, and once the mystery is revealed, you're just like, really? That's what we get. That's what this daughter of M. Night is giving us. So I'm gonna say, if you're gonna compare the first movies of both of them, yeah, I mean, The Sixth Sense blows this away for M. Night's first movie, and this one, I don't know. I mean, we've seen some great horror directors come right out of the gate with some great movies, like Brandon Cronenberg and stuff like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, blah blah blah. But yeah, Ishana, you've got some work to do, my friend. So I'm not sure what else we can. Oh, go ahead.
What was the name of that one that M. Night did? I think it was either last year or the year before, where like all the people end up on the beach.
Old.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of like. I almost compare that to this, where when we were talking, or when we were set to review that movie, I kind of looked up like reviews of the book too, and like the differences. And a lot of people had the same criticism of the book, even though the book wasn't exactly the same. And it might have even been a graphic novel. Now that I think about it, it's been a while, or I even thought about that movie. But So part of me is like, is it just that they took on a project based on like a novel or literature that wasn't that great to begin with, and this is your result? Like, and they were unable to elevate it any better, because that could be the case too. And like Don said, I did think like the cinematography, like when we get like shots of the forest and like kind of like the way the mist in the forest plays a role, and just when they're kind of out exploring, I do think it looks good. So it's not the type of movie where I'm like, oh, this person's like devoid of talent and ability. It could just be that the source material they took on was mid to begin with, and they're just not, they're so early in their career they don't have the ability yet to like elevate mid-tier quality.
I mean, from what I've heard, I think Don kind of alluded to it as well. From what I've heard, the book is actually really good. I've had at least 2 fellow podcasters come back to me and say that they really enjoyed the book. One in particular said that her and her daughter absolutely loved the book and that they were really, really looking forward to the movie. So, I'd love to get her opinion, once she sees the movie, to find out comparatively how it is, because I have to believe that the book is better, because the book is going to be able to explain more, be able to give you a little bit more exposition. Maybe we'll get to spend more time with the characters to the point where I might actually care about one of them. I mean, for fuck's sake, the best actor in the movie was the parrot. Like, the parrot was the only person that or the only character in the movie that I wanted to survive this. I'm like, as long as Darwin is all right, everything will be good, So, and ultimately, Darwin the parrot does have lines in the movie, and he's the funniest character in the whole goddamn movie. That should not be something a director is proud of. That a parrot is the best character in your movie. That's a little bit too much. And obviously, that's a personal opinion. I'm not sure if everyone's gonna think that, but I absolutely love Darwin. He was awesome. All right, folks. I guess this is going to be your final spoiler warning. If you have not watched The Watchers, then go ahead and pause the show. Go check out the movie if you're even interested, and come on back and hear our thoughts on the walkthrough. Otherwise, if you don't care about the movie or you've already seen it, go ahead and stick around for our walkthrough. All right, so our movie opens up with a gentleman, an unnamed man, just running around an area of the woods. He's very obviously being chased by something. We don't see what it is. Eventually, he falls down, ends up getting dragged off screen, and then we get our title card. So it's a quick cold open of just one guy, getting taken by something. We don't see what takes him. Obviously, you're not going to show us in the cold open. Only Godzilla -1 shows us that. But yeah, here you're going to have to wait to see the creatures. Oh, well, and if you're waiting to see the creatures, you may be a little disappointed, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Anyway. After that, we meet Mina. Mina is a pet store employee, just, random, I don't know, mid to late 20s girl working at a pet store. It doesn't seem like, she seems like a loner, doesn't have a lot of friends, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, her boss, and this is the first plot hole in the movie, I mean, instantly, in like the second scene, her boss, who I assume is the owner or manager of the pet shop, asks her to deliver a parrot to a client, and that it's going to be a 1-day drive. My friends, there's no fucking part-time job on this planet where they can ask you to take a 1-day drive to make a delivery. That makes zero sense to me. But at the same time, with Mina being a little bit of a loner and not really having much of a social life, the boss probably figured, yeah, she'll probably take the opportunity to just get out of the store and see some of the countryside, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, during her trip, oh, and by the way, am I the only one who thought the pet shop owner was in on this? Like, why on God's green earth is he sending this girl on a 20-hour drive to drop off a parrot for no extra money, mind you? It's not like he offered her any extra money.
Like a hostile situation.
Something, maybe I thought maybe he was aware of what was going on in the woods, and he was actually like kind of quote unquote feeding the watchers, if you will.
Well, yeah, because not only is it like a long drive, but it's like it's literally through the forest where road turns into like dirt. Like it's it's like has he never made this drive, or does he not know where it goes to like send her on like that kind of journey? That's
exactly. Like when she hits
Yeah.
that dirt road and the GPS says your destination is 106 kilometers down this road, I'm like, oh, come on. There's no way this pet store owner is sending this girl on this trip. But whatever, we got to advance the story, so there it is. Anyway, eventually the inevitable happens. The car breaks down, but it doesn't just break down. It shuts off. It just completely shuts off, almost like an EMP. An electronic magnetic pulse bomb went off and just destroyed all electronics in the area. You know, the engine's not turning over, the radio is not working, the car is just dead. Like the battery basically just completely died. Of course, she doesn't know where she is. She's in the middle of the woods on a one-lane dirt road. She decides to take the parrot, Darwin. She ends up naming the parrot Darwin. For whatever reason. She does give a reason in the movie, but I already forgot and I don't care anyway. So she gets out of the car. She takes Darwin with her in his, cage. Obviously she's not just carrying a loose parrot around. She walks, I would say maybe 30 to 40 feet away from the car, just yelling out into the woods. Is anybody there? Not that she saw anybody. She's just yelling, hoping that there might be someone around. And she doesn't find anything. And this is where we get one of the first really cool shots of the movie, where we see a shot of her, we see the car in the background, but then she turns around and the car is gone. So obviously, as the viewer, we're starting to understand that there's something maybe supernatural going on in these woods, because literally she only walked about 30 feet away from her car and now it's gone, completely gone. So she starts walking around the woods wondering where her car went. She ends up spotting someone, an older woman, just running through the woods. She ends up following the woman, hoping that she might be able to help her. Eventually, she follows the woman to this bunker, this just little bunker area. Looks almost like a shed, but with a big metal door. So that's hence why I'm calling it a bunker. And when the older woman opens the door and goes into the bunker, she yells out to Mina, "You have 5 seconds to get in here or I'm closing the door." And obviously Mina has no idea what's going on. These are the first words this woman has exchanged with her. So Mina, to her credit, instantly runs towards the bunker. As soon as her countdown gets to 1, Mina walks into the bunker, closes the door. The older woman closes the door. And now what we find is what we saw in the trailer. 4 people inside of a room, with one whole side of the room just being a clear glass window, which seems very unsafe, but, we'll get to that. So it's obviously at this point the sun is starting to go down, hence the hurry to get into the bunker before, any little creepy crawlies show up. And instantly the older woman introduces herself as Madeline, played by Olwen Ferrer. I think I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. I could be wrong. I think most people know who I'm talking about anyway. So she basically tells Mina to line up facing the window, the wall, the entire wall that's just a clear window. And all 4 of them are just standing there, as I'm sure most of you saw in the trailer. As the sun goes completely down, the window goes from clear glass to like a one-sided mirror type thing. So the people inside can't see out through the window, but anything outside the bunker can see through the glass into, the people that are out there. And basically they're just standing there, and then we start hearing like some crawling and rustling and things going on outside. Mina asks, "What is that?" And this is when Madeline says, "They are the Watchers. They come every night and they just watch us. They ask nothing of us. There are rules, which I'll get to in a little bit, but for the most part, the Watchers come every night from sundown to sunset and then just kind of watch the humans. No antagonism, no, they don't screw with them, try to scare them. It's literally just they're watching them." And eventually, because Mina is a new member of the group, she ends up getting an ovation. The Watchers actually, you hear a form of applause coming from outside. It sounds more like, the people hitting rocks together or whatever, but obviously these are big creatures with not normal hands, so applause might not sound the same way it does from a human. And then that's pretty much it. The next day, sun comes up, and the glass goes from the one-way mirror back to a clear piece of glass, and the people are able to get out of the bunker. So this is where Madeline, she's the elder statesman of the group, basically explains what's going on. That, that they can't be outside at night because these creatures, known as the Watchers, will basically kill anything that, isn't one of them. But if you're inside the bunker, which Madeline affectionately calls the coop, so we've got chickens in a coop, and basically explains to her some of the rules. And the rules are, we never open the door at night for anyone, no matter who it is. We never open the door at night. We're always back in the coop by sunset. If you're out in the woods after dark, you could be in danger. And then don't go near the burrows. And the burrows are exactly what you think. They're these big holes in random places throughout the woods. It's not like there's just one or two of them. There's, like a few of them. And they're very deep, very dark. No idea what's going on down there. But very early in the movie, Madeline lets Mina know, don't go there. Don't go near there. Leave those alone. Now, obviously, Mina, being her first day here, doesn't really trust Madeline. Actually, oh, and I forgot, let me introduce the other two people, too. We have Sierra, a beautiful black girl, young black girl, who is married. And as it turns out, the guy that we saw in the cold open is her husband, John. Apparently, he was with them at one point, but then decided to try to leave the coop and try to, find civilization, find their way out of there. And he just, obviously, as we see in the cold open, ends up getting taken by the Watchers. And then the last member of our group is Daniel. He is the youngest member of the group. He's probably, 18, 19 years old, maybe. Very childish, very we hear a story about how he was flirty with Sierra when she first got there, even though she was there with her husband. Like, he actually started getting kind of flirty with her. He never actually does that with Mina, so apparently Daniel doesn't like white girls, but whatever. And like I said, we get the rules, we get the basic understanding of what's going on. But as I said, Mina doesn't trust Madeline. She thinks that Madeline is, potentially knows more than she's letting on, things like that. And on her second day there, her and Daniel end up finding a burrow. And she looks down there and she thinks that she sees the bottom of the burrow. So she decides to ask Daniel if he has a rope. And lo and behold, he just happens to have a rope with him. And Daniel lowers Mina down into one of these burrows. When she's down at the bottom of the burrow, we see just a bunch of different possessions, like toys and bicycles and cameras. There's a camcorder. It's just basically all the possessions of the people that the Watchers have taken out. Apparently, they take all their stuff and they take it down into their burrows with them. Mina sees a bicycle that looks like it might be rideable. So she decides to tell Daniel to lower the rope back down. She ties the bicycle to the rope and tells Daniel to pull the bike up. While Daniel's pulling the bike up, something starts moving in the burrow in the darkness, outside of Mina's field of vision. Suddenly, she hears something approaching her in the darkness, but she's obviously too scared to leave the small circle of light in the middle of the room because, for whatever it's worth, the Watchers are fearful of the light. And what we see is a hand, but not a monstrous hand, mind you. We see a human hand reach out from the darkness into the light. And as soon as it hits the light, it has that vampire effect where as soon as the light hits it, it starts to burn and deteriorate. And the hand is pulled back instantly. Mind you, a human hand at this point. So, our gears are turning in our heads already. Eventually, Mina is able to get out of the hole. Her and Daniel return to the coop with the bike and a camcorder that they found. And Madeline seems upset. Madeline's like, where did you find this stuff? And Mina, of course, lies to her and says, oh, we found it in the woods, just out in the woods. Madeline knows that she's lying because she knows that the Watchers would never leave stuff out in the woods like that. But she doesn't make a big issue of it. She does eventually ask Mina, you saw something that scared you, didn't you? And of course, we see that in the trailer. I did watch the trailer after I watched the movie, so. And Mina basically just denies seeing anything at all. Eventually, Madeline is able to get the truth out of her that she actually went into the burrow, which instantly upsets Madeline. Madeline is pissed off. Don't you understand that these items don't belong to us? They belong to them now. You took stuff away from them, and they're going to be mad. But what they decide to do is they figure out that the camcorder that they took from the burrow is still working. It's still functional. Even though it looks terrible, it's still functional. So what they decide to do is, with the television that's provided to them in the coop, they actually use the camcorder as a surveillance camera. They set it up on the ground outside of the door and have, we see the video cable leading from the door to the television. And they're trying to pretend that they're at the table, kind of just conversing, having a normal time, so that the watchers outside won't see the camera, won't put it together that they're being watched. Eventually, someone knocks on the door, and at this point, it's nighttime. The sun has already gone down. And we see on the camera, don't forget, they put the camera on the ground outside the door since they didn't have any kind of apparatus to set it up like high. They just put it on the ground. What we see is a pair of bare human feet and legs, a pair of human legs, very obviously male because they're very hairy, knocking at the door. And, obviously the creatures don't knock. It's not like they're going to ask for permission to go in. And then we hear a voice, and we hear a male voice say, "Sierra, let me in. It's me. It's John." And obviously Sierra's like, "Yeah, oh my God, my husband, he came back. He finally came back." Madeline is obviously the smart one here. She basically tells Sierra, "There's no way that's your husband. That is not John." And why does she think that's not John? Because this is where she explains to us that the Watchers are mimics. They can actually duplicate a human. And what does that sound like to us, my friends? A changeling. Yes, changelings. At various points in the movie, they're called fairies. And then the ones that are half fairy, half human, they will eventually call halflings. But yeah, this is a changeling story, my friend. And like I said, I've seen countless better changeling stories than this. Because this one, rather than having the mystery of, some nefarious person who might be a changeling, we find out that the changelings exist first, which is definitely not the formula in this kind of movie. So like I said, Madeline knows that that's not John outside the door. Sierra obviously wants to let him in. But eventually Sierra yells through the door, "John, look in the camera outside. There's a camera on the ground near your feet. Look at it. Put your face in front of the camera so that we know it's you." The guy bends down, looks into the camera, and again, it looks like John. It totally looks like John, the guy from the cold open. He's still knocking on the door, begging to come in. Madeline refuses to let Sierra open the door, and then eventually what we see is something drag John away from the sight of the camera. So, we're all looking at the TV. We see John begging to come in, and then something drags him away off screen, and then something smashes the camera. So the camera is smashed. It's no longer functional as a surveillance camera. It's now just a fancy paperweight. And Sierra's obviously upset because she thinks that was John. She thinks, shit, I could have saved my husband. But now she understands that, he's probably, whether that was John or not, he's probably dead by now. So finally, Sarah, it makes the realization that, okay. Now, at one point, we get more explanation from Madeline about, what's going on out there, and that we find out that this is why they are watching these people. Basically, because they are mimics and because they can emulate our appearance, they can't always do it right away. They have to study us. So literally, the coop is a zoo. It's literally a zoo exhibit where these changelings are watching how the people act, how they react, how they interact with each other. They're trying to learn their mannerisms so that they can literally steal their visage and become them and go back to the real world as them. But Obviously there's different things that are keeping them there. We'll get into that here in a little bit. And eventually what ends up happening is after, the night that the night of the video camera episode, the creatures outside start smashing the window. They're pissed off because they realize that someone went into the burrow, took stuff from the burrow, and then set up a camera to try to see what the Watchers look like. And they get pissed off about it. So they start smashing the door. They start smashing the window. They're trying to get in. Eventually, the 4 members inside the coop drag the dining room table over to the door as a barricade. In doing so, they expose a trap door underneath the carpet that was underneath the dining room table. At this point, the monsters, the Watchers outside are breaking in. So they decide, and the door is a hatch. It's literally like a bunker hatch, almost like a port door in a submarine with the giant circular door handle latch thing, whatever. So they open it up. They climb down in there. Of course, just as the last person climbs into the underground bunker, the front window completely smashes open. There's glass everywhere. Still don't see the Watchers at this point, but like I said, our 4 members are safe. They get down into the underground bunker area and they find out that it's a research facility. And there's actually a working computer with video files on it. No internet, unfortunately, so they're not able to call out to contact anyone, but they start watching these videos. These videos actually turn out to be the creation of a Dr. Kilmartin. And Dr. Kilmartin is a man who apparently has been studying these creatures in the woods. Yeah, he calls them fairies. And basically, he knew of their existence. Nobody believed him. So he literally used his own money to build this bunker. So we're literally watching the guy who built this entire facility, and he calls it Wonderland. So from this point on, we're calling it Wonderland. And basically, Mina and Madeline and Sierra and Daniel continue watching these videos. There's exactly 300 of them. And that signifies the 300 days that Dr. Kilmartin stayed in Wonderland after it was completed. Basically, he explains in one of his videos is that what he did was every day he would leave the forest. How he was able to get back and forth into these forests is beyond me. And he would bring more workers with him, like a crew, to build the, Wonderland, the bunker, and then the top part of it as well, the observation area, if you will. And what he does is at the end of every workday, just as the sun is about to go down, he locks himself in the bunker and the Watchers come out and take out the fucking crew. So literally, he has a different construction crew every single day. Lord knows how many people he fucking sacrifice to these things, because this bunker does not look like it took a couple of days to build. This thing is like a month or two construction to get this thing together. So the amount of people that he must have killed in the name of science it had to be really, really high. So obviously there's 300 videos. They're not going to watch every single one of them. Eventually Mina finds a video where Dr. Kilmartin actually captures one of the Watchers. He's somehow able to capture one and keep it in a cell, almost like a prison cell that he has set up in his research facility. And he tries to engage with it. We see him try to talk to it, but the Watcher doesn't really seem interested, is just, trying to break down the prison door, the cell door. Just really, really pissed off about the whole thing. Then finally, Mina decides to just watch the 300th video, which is the final video file on the computer. And as it turns out, Dr. Kilmartin says that the Watcher that he captured basically turned on him. He tried to domesticate it, tried to be friendly with it, things like that, but that it eventually just got away, got out of the cell, And he decided, okay, it's time to end this experiment. I'm going to kill the Watcher. One bullet to the heart should do it. So apparently these things aren't all that tough. They can die by basic bullets. And he says that he has 2 bullets in the gun. One is for the Watcher and one is for himself. So he's literally going to shoot the Watcher in the heart, hoping that it dies, and then he's going to shoot himself. What we see, obviously, the camera doesn't move. The camera stays right at the doctor's desk, but we see him climb up into the coop area, the observation area, and we hear a single shot, and then we hear the second shot, and then the video just ends. Or it doesn't end, but like there's nothing else on the file other than that static image, so they stop watching. So obviously the doctor killed himself and was hoping to destroy the facility. But obviously, these 4 people are in the facility, so the doctor didn't get a chance to destroy it. So, and he leaves an instruction on that final video that if anybody watches this video and you're able to get out of the woods, please go to my office at the university, find the documents about the fairies and the halflings and everything that I had, and destroy it. Just destroy all of it. I don't want anyone else to be caught in the situation that I'm in. Blah, 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 blah. So, he also tells them that it turns out he has a boat. He brought a rowboat. When he came out to this area, he brought and hid a rowboat near the water. Now, these woods are very weird in the sense that you can escape them, but there has to be a very specific route out. And the route out of the woods is you have to follow the birds. Every night, right at sunset, a large flock of birds, we see them come out of the trees and they fly out of the woods. And so you have to follow the birds out. And what does Mina just happen to have with her from the pet store? A fucking parrot, my friends, Darwin, who, by the way, I've skipped all of Darwin's funny lines, but literally... multiple times he repeats "try not to die," and everyone in the theater just dies laughing because he always says it at the best possible time. Like literally as they're being attacked by the Watchers, he'll spit out "try not to die, try not to die." It's fucking hysterical. Anyway, the doctor in the last video lets them know that if you go back past this point number 1. It's either 134 or 189. I can't remember. But basically, they have signs posted all through the woods that are numbered. And they're basically, the signs are called the point of no return. And what that means is if you go past this point and it's any past noon, like if it's past the sun's highest point in the sky, you're not going to have enough time to get back to the coop or to Wonderland. So if you pass the point of no return, you got to keep going. There's no coming back because you're never going to make it back to the bunker in time. But they have to find a particular point of no return, and that's when the doctor lets them know, follow this path out of the woods, get to this bunker, and then follow the birds as they fly out. Now, obviously, if they would have actually done that, they would have been killed because the birds don't fly out until dusk, until the sun is coming out. But because she happened to have Darwin with her, she opens up Darwin's cage, releases him. Darwin just starts flying, and the group starts following. They start following. Now, at this point, Madeline has already given the other 3 people a warning that the woods are going to try to keep you here. They're going to try to mess with you. There's going to be hallucinations, flashbacks, just weird stuff that's going to mess with your mind. You have to ignore it and, keep your eye on the prize. We're going to this point and we have to get to the river. We have to get to the water. During their travel, they see various things like Mina sees herself and her little sister. I've completely skipped Mina's backstory, but the short version is Mina has a twin sister named Lucy. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Mina and Lisa? Or Lucy, excuse me. Mina and Lucy. So obviously Mina and Lucy's mother is a fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and probably the movie too, because it would make sense, because Mina and Lucy are in their late 20s and it's 2024. That movie came out in what, 92 or 3, right? Bram Stoker's Dracula. So yeah, her mom.
The Coppola one's 92, yeah.
92, yeah. So it almost makes, sense that these girls are probably in their late 20s, and their mom, since they were twins, named them Mina and Lucy for Bram Stoker. So interesting little point. Anyway, it turns out that Mina, when she was a kid, was a little bit of a rebel, didn't really follow the rules, which is kind of her personality throughout the whole movie. She's not really interested in listening to Madeline's rules, not really interested in following what everybody else is doing. And we find out that when Mina was little, she wanted to open her window because she was hot for whatever reason. Mom tells her, "Can you close the door? Or can you close your window because it's messing up my hair?" Mom apparently doesn't understand physics, because if you literally just open any other fucking window in the car, you're going to have a flow, the breeze is going to flow through and your hair's not going to get as messed up. But apparently Mom has never opened 2 windows in her own fucking car. So she ends up forcing the window closed with her controls in the front seat. Mina is trying to hold the window down, but she's a little kid. She's like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. So, of course, the window closes on her fingers. She starts screaming. Mom turns around to find out what the hell Mina's doing. And as Mom turns around, they drive head on into a semi-truck. So, and basically Mina and Lucy are estranged. They haven't spoken to each other since the accident. So literally, I don't know if Mina got adopted by another family member or whatever, but basically Mina's been gone for like 15 years, just disappeared. And it's because she feels the guilt for the death of her mother. And also, her twin sister Lucy now has a nasty little scar on her face that she basically is going to have the rest of her life. So now you can tell them apart. Go figure. Anyway, so that's, a little bit of Mina's backstory, which ultimately doesn't really have much bearing on what's going on, but I figured some of you might care.
Even though it was like a tragedy what happened, I'm just like, is that Mina's first time dealing with like kids in the car? Because I'm like, if my kid, like, I've had plenty of situations where my kids were being annoying in the back seat, but I've never just taken my eyes off the road long enough to just like randomly veer into another lane to get a head-on collision. I was like, damn.
Yeah. Mom definitely looked like she was frazzled. I mean, because there is no dad either. So, I mean, you've got a single mom taking care of twin girls, and from what I understand, little girls are evil, so it's not easy.
Did they really explain why she became estranged with her sister? Was it just the tragedy was too much? Because like
it was just the guilt. Mina felt guilt and just disappeared. Didn't want to, like, I guess she couldn't look at Lucy. She couldn't look at her sister and not, feel the loss of her mother and blah 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 blah.
Okay.
So yeah,
and maybe because her sister had the scars too. Maybe it was too much of a reminder.
Possibly, yeah. There's that too. So yeah. So there you go. That's Mina's backstory. So like I said, at this point, our 4 survivors have packed up and they're running through the woods. And like I said, before they left, Madeline was very clear to them: the woods are gonna try to fuck with you. Don't let them. Stay focused and let's get to the boat. So they go through the woods. Mina sees hallucinations of Lucy as a little kid running around the woods, but Mina's smart enough to ignore it. She doesn't, engage. Eventually, Sierra thinks that she sees her husband, but again, she ignores it because she knows it's the woods just kind of fucking with her. And then finally, they get to the water's edge, and there's the boat. It's just a rowboat under a tarp, so that's probably why it's still there, why it wasn't destroyed by the Watchers or whatever. And literally, just as they're a few feet away from the edge of the water, which is safety because, as Madeline explained earlier, the fairies can't leave this island for whatever reason. They can't leave. They're forced to stay on their ancestral land or whatever the case may be. So literally, as they're approaching the boat, Daniel is lagging behind and he thinks he sees John. Why the woods would mimic John to try to get Daniel's attention is beyond me, but it actually works. Daniel sees John injured on the ground and is like, oh shit, John's still alive. I'm going to go get him. Madeline and Sierra and Mina are all yelling at Daniel, no, don't go back there, you idiot, don't go back there. It's the woods. And of course, what ends up happening is as Daniel is in an embrace with John, trying to help him off the ground, we see John's hand morph into, the big black monstrous hand that we've seen multiple times in the movie. And he breaks Daniel's leg. So Daniel falls down. Eventually, then we see the fake John stand up. His eyes are completely whited over. They look like zombie eyes. And he says something cryptic to Daniel. I don't know what. I don't care that much. But then he carves a symbol into his forehead with his nail, with his claw. He takes the claw and he carves a symbol into Daniel's forehead, and then suddenly he morphs into Daniel. The guy, the watcher that just looked like John, morphs into Daniel. At this point, our other 3 survivors are all in the boat. Madeline tells them, "Don't worry about it. They can't give chase. They can't leave the island. So as long as we get off the shore, we're fine." And then we get this great shot where as the 3 women are in the rowboat rowing away, they look back and all of the watchers are on the beach, but they all look like John and they're all butt naked. So you literally have a few dozen naked Johns all standing there, all just staring at the 3 ladies as they row away. Eventually, it's the next morning, the sun is up, and they are now near a road. And when they look up at the road, they see traffic going by. So they realize they're back in civilization. At this point, it's only an hour and 15 minutes in the movie, and you're like, oh shit, they're off the island. Movie's almost over. Nope. Basically what happens is Mina is the one who volunteers to go to Dr. Kilmartin's office to destroy all his evidence of the fairies. While she's there, she ends up finding some pictures that, give her pause. She doesn't understand. Obviously, as the viewer, we don't get to look at the pictures quite yet. But she ends up taking all the stuff that Dr. Kilmartin had about the fairies, about the halflings, about the bunker, about everything, and takes it with her and ends up destroying it all. But she doesn't destroy the pictures. What she ends up doing is she ends up going to she ends up going to Sierra's house. Apparently Sierra, lives locally. Mina finds out where she lives and she goes to visit her. When she gets there, Sierra's there, just kind of drinking coffee. And Mina says, okay, I went to the doctor's office. I destroyed all the evidence, but I found these pictures and I need to show them to you. When we finally look at the pictures, what we find is Dr. Kilmartin dancing with Madeline. Yes, as it turns out, Madeline is actually the wife of Dr. Kilmartin. But there's still more revelations because, as it turns out, Madeline Kilmartin died years earlier. Madeline Kilmartin died before Dr. Kilmartin left to build the bunker. So what happened? Remember the Watcher that Dr. Kilmartin captured? He was purposely showing this Watcher pictures and videos of his deceased wife, Madeline, to try to get the Watcher to mimic Madeline, which apparently it did with great success, because if you remember the video, the last video in the bunker, and we heard those 2 gunshots, yeah, the doctor was not able to kill the Watcher. Both gunshots actually ended up going into the doctor. And Madeline, our friend who's been giving us all the rules, who's kind of been the leader of the group, as it turns out, is a halfling. Yes, we find out that there are these halflings that basically what happened is there was a time when fairies and humans lived together peacefully. The humans would be able to utilize the fairies' powers because obviously the fairies were supernatural. They had abilities, magic, and things like that that was actually benefiting the humans. And obviously, inevitably, some humans ended up falling in love with some of the fairies, and they ended up having children together. Those children were known as halflings. Now, as it turns out, Madeline is a halfling, and that would explain why she was able to get off the island, which also creates another plot hole because it's like, okay, did the doctor just happen to capture the only halfling on the island, or are there more halflings and they just don't know that they're halflings? Because Madeline didn't know that she was a halfling. Mina ended up having to explain it to her in a scene that we actually haven't gotten to yet, but we'll get to it here in a little bit. So, yeah, that's our big reveal. Madeline actually is a halfling. She is half human, half fairy, which is why she was able to get off the island. Now, while Mina is at Sierra's house showing her these pictures, a car pulls up in the driveway. They look outside, and it's fucking Sierra. Sierra is arriving in her car, and Mina looks at the Sierra that she's been talking to this whole time and realizes, oh shit, you're Madeline, aren't you? And then instantly Sierra, morphs into Madeline, and then it turns into an attack where Madeline is now attacking Mina, trying to kill her, trying to, stop her from, doing what, I don't know, but basically just trying to kill her. Now, eventually, Mina then explains to Madeline, you're not a fairy, you're actually a halfling. That's why you were able to get off the island. That's why you were able to just walk off the island and sail away with no issues, because you're half human. At that moment, Madeline springs wings, almost like she didn't know that she had wings. Literally, she's like, we see her think for a minute, like, wait a minute, I'm a halfling? And then she starts like shaking her shoulders and she sprouts these big black wings. She ends up flying on top of Sierra's house, and then Mina convinces her that there's probably more halflings out there, that she can't possibly be the only one. There have to be more. And with this information, the Madeline halfling basically lets Mina and Sierra both go, and then basically just says something cryptic like, there better be more halflings, and then flies away. Then we get our final scene of the movie, and the final scene of the movie is Mina at Lucy's house, at her estranged sister's house, and they're just like, they're catching up, and Mina is actually explaining everything to Lucy that happened to her at the bunker, in the forest, everything that happened at Sierra's house, and apparently Lucy is very accommodating because she believes her instantly. Like, there's no skepticism, there's no giggles, or, oh, you're just crazy. Like, she believes everything that Mina says, and Lucy herself even says, well, I hope Madeline finds what she's looking for. And then at this point, Mina says that, I know Madeline is out there. I can feel her. Sometimes I know that she's watching me. And she talks about how sometimes she's just a random face in the crowd. Sometimes she's this little redheaded girl. Blah, blah, blah. And then eventually we do see a little redheaded girl walking around the town that Mina and Lucy are in. Eventually, Mina looks out the window and sees the little redheaded girl looking up at the window. And we see that the little redheaded girl's face isn't perfectly formed. Like, there's a little bit of like damage on one side of her face. And remember, these halflings, they have to study humans for a while to be able to perfect the mimic, if you will. So obviously,
it's kind of weird though, because if she's out in the world surrounded by billions of people, that'd be an awful lot of studying you can get in. Like, I don't even know why she would keep going back to Mina
exactly
in the first place.
And that's pretty much how our movie ends, folks. We see the little redheaded girl. She turns around, her back towards the camera, and just walks away, and that's it. Fade to black. That's our movie. Now, admittedly, I may have skipped some, I wouldn't say vital information, but there's probably some plot holes that I didn't get to talk about, because like I said, I saw this on Thursday. I don't usually watch movies on their, premiere screener night, but I just happened to be free Thursday, so I figured let's knock this out. I had fully intended on watching it again a second time so that I can, have the walkthrough as precise as possible. But yeah, I just had no interest in wanting to watch this movie a second time, friends. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that walkthrough kind of gives you an idea of what what we get in this movie. If you've already seen the film, what did you think about it? Did you like it more than we did? Did you read the book? And that's something that I'm very interested in. Anybody who's read this book, did you enjoy the movie after reading the book, or is the movie just a pale comparison to the book? Like, that's what I'm really interested in. So yeah, hit us up and let us know.
All I know is if I ever need construction or repairs on my house done, I'm going to contact the contractor that professor used to build a fortress out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. Because how the hell, like, what explanation is there that could actually happen? And the other question I have is if he already, so I'm assuming he'd been studying the mythology and stuff behind this, and that's why this track to go out there. Do you think he'd build the house a little closer to being able to escape
Well, maybe the Watchers wouldn't go there if it was too close to the edge. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I mean, so okay. And I thought that too, like, okay, maybe because there was that big seal, like when they're making their escape and they come across the seal, the depictions of like fairies, kind of like, oh, this is maybe where they initially trapped them. That, okay, I can buy that, but then it's like, but we already see magic fuckery happening when she's just driving on the road, right? When her her electronics start going haywire. So I'm assuming that means like whatever hold the escaped fairies have over the forest, they can at least affect things that far away. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you have to build the house right next to the road, but like if you map out like, okay, if I had to escape, I'm assuming
he did.
That boat was deeper in the woods, so like build the fucking house closer so you could just leave.
I mean, that's just one of many, many plot holes in this movie. Like I said, just the whole thing with Dr. Kilmartin capturing a halfling, just happened to capture a halfling, because it's not like he could tell the difference between a full fairy and a halfling, but he just happened to catch one. Lucky him. And then, like I said, the whole thing with Mina driving out to this place to deliver Darwin. Oh, by the way, Darwin survives. Yay! Darwin is still... At the end of the movie, we see that Mina and Darwin are still together. Obviously, after everything that they've been through, I would imagine Mina is going to keep Darwin. So that's now her pet. She doesn't give a shit about who she was supposed to deliver it to. Fuck it, it's mine now. And honestly, after everything she's been through, she deserves it. But like I said...
I was going to say, there's the sequel, The Owner's Coming After Darwin.
Ha! But then the other thing is, too, Mina never goes back to work. Like, I wanted to see a scene where Mina goes back to work and maybe the pet store owner's like, oh, you're alive. Hi. Almost to give us that confirmation that he's a part of this. Because if he wasn't a part of this, wouldn't he have reported Mina missing? Like, it just, there's so much that's not talked about, like real world stuff that's not discussed in the movie that just, it leaves major plot holes, like I said. And that's only about half of the plot holes this movie has. This movie has a bunch. I mean, as I was driving home, I'm like, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why the extra ending? Like, what was the only point of the extra ending was to show that Madeline was a halfling, but I didn't need that information. In fact, you could have just told us, like, you know what I mean? You could have just showed us pictures and told us that Madeline was a halfling and then just ended the movie. Like, that entire tacked on extra scene just was pointless and stupid. Like, it was supposed to be this big, exciting culmination, and it just fizzles out. There's nothing
they could have done.
About it.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of describing too is like they could have done the Unbreakable ending where like Mr. Glass revealing himself is literally like the jaw drop, and then like 30 seconds later credits rolling. Like we don't need exposition after that. It's like drop the jaw and then end movie like right there. That's all they really needed to do.
Big time. Yeah. Yeah, this movie definitely goes off the rails by the third act. I mean, like I said, if you're a younger horror movie fan who's never really partaken in a lot of changeling stories, then this one might work for you. But if you've ever watched, a decent Changeling movie, or hell, even some of the anthology segments, like Tales of Halloween has a great Changeling segment, stuff like that's endlessly better than this movie. So yeah, just not a very good Changeling story.
The other, I think the other thing that kind of disappointed me, and I'd be interested to see, if there's more to it in the book, is for an explanation of, well, they just want to observe us and kind of watch how we are. You didn't really give them that much stuff in that little facility to work with. What are you observing them doing? Sitting on the couch?
Exactly.
There's not much interaction that happens through the night. What they watch a show, I guess. I mean, I guess the professor provided that for if they got bored, but there was really no outline of I mean, it's explained, they want to mimic us, but they're not getting a lot to mimic if they're just kind of what they're watching them do in that house. Basically, how long would that take to learn?
A night? Yeah, really. The other thing is too.
You don't need to observe 5 months of.
Well, 5 months, my ass. I mean, Madeline said she had been there for 8 months or so. And obviously her being a halfling means she's probably been there longer even. So my big question is, what the fuck was Madeline's end game? Madeline already nailed the look of Madeline. Well, the halfling already nailed the look of Madeline. If she wanted to leave, obviously she probably didn't know that she was a halfling, which is why she never left the area voluntarily. But what was her end game? Was it literally just to mimic anyone who comes into that room and then kill them? With the eventual plan of what? I mean, if Madeline thought she couldn't leave that island, what does it matter that you can mimic a human? You know what I mean? It doesn't. There's something missing there that's not explained to us. Madeline's motivation, Madeline's end game, just all of it. I don't know. As much as I love the actress who plays her, I hate this fucking character. She's so shallow and hollow that there's no substance to her, and that bothers me. So yeah.
Yeah, and now while I assume the movie is not ever gonna get a sequel, the book is getting a sequel called Stay in the Light. So.
Well, I mean, hopefully the book is better. I mean, I can almost guarantee the book is better because, again, this movie is not objectively bad. It's just, if you're a seasoned horror fan who's been watching these movies for decades, there's nothing that interesting here. There's nothing new. There's nothing fun. It's just a movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's just not a very good one. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, with that said, I think that's going to wrap up another episode. But we got something for list to Venom. Why don't you let everyone know we've been up to other than Fresh Cuts?
All right, so let's see. Creature Comforts episode 26 is still our latest episode, but in just a few days we will be recording episode 27, where we're going to look at the nest. We're going to be looking at roaches as a creature in Creature Features for the first time, so that should be fun, and that'll also be a first-time watch for me, so I'm excited to check that one out. The main show, we finally did record the main show. What was that, episode 60, I believe? And on that episode, we looked at a couple of Derek's picks. And we also had our friend Don joining us. So we had the whole No More Room in Hell family together for the main show. And on that one, we looked at a couple of Japanese zombie movies where we talked about Stacy and Hell Driver. So that was a damn fun, especially Hell Driver. That was a damn fun conversation. Considering Hell Driver was a first-time watch for me, and I saw shit in that movie that I never thought I would see put to celluloid. So that movie was quite the experience. So yeah, check out episode 60 of the main show when that's available. Should be available anytime now. And I think that's it for me. Yeah, it's been pretty slow podcasting right now, but hopefully with the summer coming, things will change. So that's it for me.
All right. How about you, Dom?
Yeah, as mentioned, I joined the other members of the family. Creature Comforts. I believe the episode will be out by next episode. We should be recording that one soon. So look for that one. I'm on the main show, which was an absolute blast. So glad we got to talk about those. Yeah, other than that, the only other thing is, again, Horror Countdown. This is the off week, so this is no new episode, but the last one we did, which was trying to remember because we recorded these out of order. So the last episode was oh god,
The last episode of this.
No, the last episode of my show.
Movies with two survivors.
Yeah, movies with two survivors. That's what it was. Okay, yeah. We're recording these out of order, so I don't remember which one we did. But more than two survivors. So you have your main hero, your other survivor, and then there's several others. So it should be pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, other than that, not much else.
Okay. And yeah, I got nothing. Just listen to the other episodes of Fresh Cuts, and No More Room in Hell 60 should be out within a day or two of listening to this. So check that one out. Dawn was a part of that episode, so we had the whole No More family here. And what's else? That's it. And our next episode is going to be Under Paris, the new shark movie on Netflix. That in about a week's time. So with that, thanks everyone for listening. Let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Always listen to the rules, folks. Follow the rules. Trust me, they're there for a reason.
Once that road turns into dirt, I'm not going any further. That's a good rule to adhere to as well. Peace.